What's going on, everybody? This is Black Men Sundays. I'm your host, Corey Sylvester Murray, and we're talking about generational wealth, mental health, finance, and business.
It's a Black Man Sunday. Time to put all childish things away. I refuse to be the man I was yesterday. Gotta put my best foot forward and elevate.
And today, we're talking to Jamil Frazier. This brother's an entrepreneur, keynote speaker, business coach, and investor. This brother has a health coaching organization, a real estate investing company, an education company, a publishing company. This brother's out of San Diego, California. He's also a best-selling author, a husband of four. So without further ado, Jamil Frazier, brother, welcome to Black Men Sundays. How you doing?
Man, we in the building. What up, Corey?
What's going on, man? And one thing that I forgot to mention, you also established scholarships for high schools, churches, and universities. So without further ado, man, I want to jump right into that. How did you set the scholarships up? Because on Black Men Sundays, it's October. We do our turkey drive in November for three boys and girls clubs. But I would like to add to, our turkey drive and set up some scholarships. So how did you set yours up, and what advice and tips can you give for brothers like me that's trying to set up scholarships as well?
Man, well, first and foremost, man, I'm so excited to be on here. I've been all over your social media. Um, Man, you are the real deal. I see what you're doing. I see the platform that you have. I see the type of people that's been coming on the pod and the information, the knowledge that you guys have been dropping for folks like me, people that want to level up, people that want to do better. I mean, I think we need more of that. And to see you running in the forefront of that, man, I just got to give you your props, man, for real. For me, it was always a dream. I came up playing football, and for me, making it to college, I think that was a lot of kids that were around me. That's what we wanted. We wanted football scholarships. We wanted to be good. We wanted to go play in college, and I got really, really, really lucky when I was in about the fifth grade. I had someone start sponsoring me, and she basically sponsored me to play football all the way from the fifth grade throughout high school. So I just knew that one day I wanted to be in a position where I could give back. So one of the first things that we started doing was I partnered with the university that I ended up graduating from, played football with, and I always wanted to establish a scholarship through that school. And so because we had connections, because we knew a lot of the coaches, we were able to do that. And then we just started partnering with cities where everywhere that we went, we just started partnering with the local community, partnering with the local cities, and seeing what they wanted, how we could step in and drive value and create scholarship funds for mostly athletes, because that's my background. And then, as a part of my own organization, there's just a lot of people who were believers and were planting churches. And so we wanted to figure out a way to start supporting them. And so we just started partnering with local pastors and developing scholarships to help plant churches. But once the churches were established, then we wanted to make sure we could keep on giving them annual funding. So, man, we've been doing that for the last 10 years, and we continue to do it. And it's just a big part of our philosophy.
Great information. And for brothers and sisters listening that, want to establish scholarships, do they have a LLC, a business set up to do that, or can they do that without like what's the best tip for someone that's, wants to establish a scholarship?
Sure. So you do not need an LLC. You don't have to do it through a corporation. You can go straight to the entity that you are passionate about, whether that's, religious affiliation. For us, it was colleges and high schools. One of the places that we get asked to come in and speak quite a bit is high schools and colleges. So just partnering with the administrators from the different schools, partnering with the local leaders and whatever it is that you want to do. You can do it straight that way. If you do have, now we do a lot of these scholarships from our business, so that we can have for tax purposes and tax write-offs and things like that. But you do not need an LLC or an S corporation, or to do it out of a corporation. You could just move forward and do it. I would say I just helped someone and they wanted to go back and do a scholarship through a university in Southern California called Cal State LA. and they partnered with the administration, with the faculty, and they were able to do it where they were able to have do it in a nonprofit, and that gave them tremendous tax breaks as well. So I would just say find out what you're passionate about, connect with the leaders. If you want to do it through your company, if you have an LLC, S corp, or something like that, you can, but you don't have to.
Gotcha. Great information, man. Now let's jump right in because this Black Men Sundays. We want to talk about this generational wealth. I ask all our guests at the top of the show, what's the best way to achieve generational wealth? Then on the back of the show, I'm gonna ask you who you voting for in this election. But let's take care of this
Oh
generational wealth.
man, let's go, Corey. Let's go.
Yeah, let's
Oh
go.
man, we really diving in. Best way to create generational wealth. Um, I think first and foremost starts with mindset. And for me, I didn't grow up thinking that I didn't think about creating wealth. You know, a little bit about my background is I grew up with a single family household. My mother raised a ton of kids. My father was in and out of jail pretty much my whole life. My father lived with me for maybe a year out of my whole life. And I grew up on welfare, Section 8 housing, food stamps, and that was just my existence. I never thought about growing wealth. I never thought about having wealth. It wasn't a conversation that we had in the household. We were just trying to figure out how to get to the next day. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted a football scholarship so badly, is because I knew that there was no way, at least when I was younger, I didn't foresee a way of getting into college without some sort of financial aid or some sort of scholarship. I have helped thousands of people over the last 10 years start to generate wealth. And it really does come down from your mindset, the way that you think, the way that you compute, what your vision is, how you believe in your philosophical concepts, how you feel about things like delayed gratification. I would start there. It really is that old adage, you know, you are going to be what it is that you see, and it's hard to see something if you can't think something. And for me, I got really lucky about 12 years ago to where I just had some mentors come into my life, and they started to speak life into me. They started to have me see things a little bit differently, a lot of it differently. And that really made an impact on me to where I could start thinking in the ways that people who build wealth think. Outside of that, I tell people all the time, Corey, like building wealth really comes down to a couple different things. One, you have to actually want to do it. It's going to be very, very hard to start building wealth by accident. Two is you're going to have to get really good with delaying a ton of gratifications. The things that you might want right now are good, but can you get to a point to where you can start pursuing great? And that great has to override what looks good right now. And really, that comes down to your vision. And then lastly, can you stay consistent? Building wealth, what I found and what I've taught for a long time is just time. Like, can you have good habits that compound over and over and over again throughout time? And if you can do that, I fully believe it doesn't matter if you're Black, if you're white, if you're Asian, if you're Latino, it really doesn't matter. I believe that anybody who really wants to can do it if you start to have those components.
I got you, but I mean specifically, like, whether it's home ownership, stocks, like, in your opinion, what's the number one best way to achieve generational wealth?
You have to invest. And so people want to know, well, what investment vehicle do you suggest I get into? Here's what I would say. There are a lot of investment vehicles, and I believe that all of them work. So whether we get into the markets, whether we get into real estate, whether we get into crypto, whether we get into what I'm doing right now, which is private equity, all of them work. Here's the things that I suggest that people start doing. If you have some sort of income that's coming in, Corey, whether it's a job or whether you have a business, or heck, whether you're on Section 8 and welfare like I was when I was growing up and didn't get off of until I was 22 years old. If you have income that's coming in, you can build wealth. So I always suggest for people to take whatever amount that's coming in, take 10% of that and start putting it away to saving. Take another 10% of that and put it away so that you can invest. And my philosophy, what I teach my students and what I teach my kids is that last 10%, put it away so that you can give it away. So you can tithe or give it away in forms of scholarships. Live off of 70% of your income. Now, that 10% that we're going to start investing, then where do you put that money? When I first started out, I put it into real estate. And then I realized real estate didn't really fit my temperament. And so I sold off all my real estate and then I started lending. And then I realized lending for my temperament, for how I was living my life, running my businesses, I love lending. I didn't have to do much. I didn't have to have too much hands on. I love the sort of returns. And then from that, I got into angel investing. And then from that, we're in private equity. So we hold our wealth in the markets. We still hold some in real estate. We invest a lot into companies and we put a lot of money into private equity. To me, I don't want people, Corey, to get too bogged down on what vehicle I put it in. And that's one of the biggest mistakes that I've seen a lot of people do, especially our community, is we start to make this thing too heavy, too cumbersome, too hard. It's not that hard. Even if you wanted to just put it into the markets and you just put it into a standard low cost index fund that tracks the S&P 500, you are going to build wealth over time. Even if you put away $500 a month into a low cost index fund that tracks the S&P 500, over the next 25 to 30 years, you will build a tremendous amount. And I'm talking a million, 2 million, 3.5 million that you can start to use to create generational wealth.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about. You ain't playing no games on here, man. And I want to talk about your healthy coaching organization. I see it generates over $12 million annually. So let's talk about, how and why you set that up and how you're able to generate so much income.
So again, I feel like a lot of my life has been luck, divine intervention. And I love that you guys talk about, relationships and the mental health aspect on this podcast. When I saw that, I was like, man, these guys really know what they're doing for real because it all intertwines. In 2010, my wife and I found out that we were pregnant with our first son. You would think that it would be this joyous moment for me, that I would be elated, climbing to the top of the mountain, screaming, my son is about to come, but it was the direct opposite. I was scared. I went into a 2-year depression. I put on a whole bunch of weight. I started doing a lot of things that were unhealthy, drinking way too much, partying way too much. Didn't know how to handle it because, like I said, I never had a father. And so now me becoming a father was something that was really scary for me. So during those 2 years, Corey, I put on a lot of weight. When I graduated college playing football, I was probably 180. And at this time, I was about 225, 230. And I'm only 5'8". So that was a lot of weight on my body. And so I had a buddy of mine I used to play football with. He said, hey, you should contact my mom. She's a health coach. She'll help you develop better habits and she'll help you get healthier. And so I did, and she became a mentor for me. And so she helped me get healthy. She saw that I had, a relatively big network. And she said, man, you would be amazing. Like, you're empathetic, you know a lot of people, you've obviously had great results. People are already responding. You should go help people change their life and make transformation. And after about a month of thinking about it, I was scared. I never really had a business before. She was using these big words, business and all this stuff. I was a corporate guy. I worked in pharmaceutical sales for Johnson and Johnson. I never really saw myself as a business guy. I saw myself as a hard worker for somebody who already had a business. And so I went to a seminar that her and her folks were doing, and I saw that, man, this is people's lives are changing. I want to be a part of this. So I came back home. I quit that job, that 6-figure job, and I just decided one by one, I'm going to help people change their lives. And then from there, started to think about scaling, which we could absolutely talk about once you want to start scaling your business. And so I thought, man, there's a lot of people that are like me. They probably have an entrepreneur spirit. They want to help people transform. Maybe I should just start mentoring them and showing them how to not only create their businesses, but how to scale it by helping people make transformations in their health. And so we started doing that. And within a couple years, we were probably supporting, I don't know, man, tons and tons of clients. I probably had, you know, 2 to 4,000 entrepreneurs that I was mentoring and coaching. And then we just been rocking and rolling since. So yeah, we do about 3 million a month in revenue. And from launching that business, made us a millionaire in 6.5 years.
Wow, man. Wow. I'm blown away by that. And let's talk about how you were able to establish the network of clients. Because I know a lot of business owners start businesses and they're spending their own money for the first 3 to 5 years. They're like, man, I'm not really making anything. I'm basically shelling more out than I'm making. So how did you set your
Correct.
network up? And at what point were you able to, leave your Johnson and Johnson, the medical sales job, and really
Correct.
dive into this? Like, let's talk monetarily though.
It was all organic. I believe you can launch any business with passion, desire from picking up the phone. And so I really started that business with a combination of a ton of phone calls and organic social media presence. And so my whole tactics were very, very, very simple. Don't laugh at me. It still works. We still do it to this day. It's been 12 years later. But basically, I started looking at my network of all the people that I knew, right? All the people that would maybe want to support me, didn't want to get involved, but they could lead me to some people that did want to get involved. And I'm talking about high school newspaper reporters that wrote articles on me back in the 90s. I'm talking about my football coaches from college. I'm talking about anybody who I ever came in contact with. Oh, pastors. If your name and phone number was in my address book, you were getting a call. And it was a simple, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is how my life has been changed. I'm passionate about helping other people change their lives. I'm going to get all of Southern California healthy. If you know anybody that wants to get healthier, please shoot them my way. You know my heart. You know I'm convicted. You know when I get into something, it's going to be the real deal. So if you got mamas, cousins, aunties, friends that want to get healthy, man, shoot them our way. So it was a combination of doing that. I said, I'm going to make basically 20 phone calls every single day. And I'm going to do that every single month. And I think that at some point in time, that should have a compounding effect. And if I'm not getting the sort of traction that I want, then I'm taking these 20 phone calls and I'm upping them to 40. So it was that. And then it was social media. My social media tactics was so stinking simple and it still works. So when we're working with business owners these days and we're helping them really expand their brand, it's the same sort of thing. It is organic posting, is creating organic content, it's calling out people's problems, and then it's driving solutions to those people's problems. It is making sure that you show up on other people's pages. It's making sure that you drive value to those pages, and it's making sure that you're constantly in people's DMs creating authentic conversations and that you're expanding your own network. And as you do that, then you drive organic content to where on one end, you're doing all outbound with my phone calls. And on the other end, because we're driving such beautiful organic content, now we start to have inbound people coming to me saying, bro, what is it that you're doing? Then I switched it up. At first, everything was about how can I establish clients? I started establishing a ton of clients, but there was just one guy. I wasn't making that much, probably just from all my clients. I was probably doing maybe, you know, $30,000 a month in revenue, but only putting maybe $8,000 a month in my pocket. That wasn't enough. That wasn't even enough. That wasn't. I was making more than that in Johnson and Johnson, and so now to be on the phone and Zooms all day long with just individually with these clients wasn't cutting it. I was basically making the same amount. So I said, well, this isn't going to work. I'm tired all the time. I'm stressed out. I feel like I feel like I'm a nutritionist, a fitness coach, a therapist, and a pastor all at once. How do I expand this? Because I want to start putting at least $83,000 a month in my pocket. That was my goal. 83,333 was my goal. So I figure I just have to find more people that want to do what I'm doing, teach them how to do what I'm doing, and then take a percentage of their revenues. So everything was the exact same, still the same outbound calls, still the same organic content, just change the vocabulary. So instead of me calling people saying, who do you know that wants to get healthy? Who do you know that wants to, make $100,000 running their own coaching organizations? Who do you know that's tired of busting their butts at their corporate jobs and dealing with all of the politics? Who do you know that want to be walking on the beach and out in Tulum like I am right now, but want to drive value into people? Who do you know is saying all the same phone calls? And then my content on social media just changed. So instead of content that's going to attract a client, now it's content that's going to attract somebody who has an entrepreneurial mindset that wants to build a coaching organization. They just don't know how to. They don't know the processes, the procedures. They don't know the marketing. And now I can come in and show them how to do that, but of course, take a percentage of their revenue.
And before we talk about your real estate investing company, I want to talk about when people have their businesses set up and then someone comes to you with a lot of money and they say, I want to invest in your business. I'm talking just straight investing conversation. What
Sure.
verbiage should we use? Because I've had a brother come up to me like 2 weeks ago and he said, I want to invest in you, invest in your business as an investor. But I was kind of like, okay, well, what type of jargon should I use? What type of conversation should I use just for someone that wants to invest, a good dollar amount into your
Sure.
business?
Okay, perfect. So somebody's coming to me because they want to invest in my business, not me going to them because I want to invest in their business. Well, I would say first and foremost, if you're at the place as an entrepreneur where people know about you, and want to invest in you, that's you're probably in a really good place. So first and foremost, congratulations, because most businesses, man, don't make any money. Unfortunately, it is harder than I thought to um, make profit in business because, like I said, things happen for us. I really, in a lot of ways, feel like I got lucky. But if somebody's coming to you and they want to invest in your business, first and foremost, I would ask why. Like, what has got you interested, and what have you heard, and what sort of value could you bring to my business outside of money? If they're looking to make an investment and they want equity, then I would start thinking about first. So I wouldn't bring on any investors in any of our companies. But if somebody was looking to bring on an investor, then first and foremost, what I would start to do is an analysis of how much you think your business is worth, and how much of your business are you thinking you'd be willing to give up for X amount of dollars. And I would start thinking about what areas are you not good at, like where do you have some sort of fallacies in procedure, and what areas are you weak at that somebody else can come in and drive value to that part of the business and the organization. And so I would ask them, so what sort of strategic planning can you bring to the organization? What other companies have you worked with that are like mine? What sort of dollar amounts have you invested in the companies that are like mine? And what are you looking for? A lot of times, if I'm looking for an investor, it's important for you to know there's different. When I look to invest in a company, Corey, I'm looking for a company that wants to scale and wants to sell. A lot of times, if you're a CEO and you're thinking about bringing on investors, a lot of times investors are like me, is they're not looking for a legacy business, but you might be looking to have your business for 10, 15, 20, 30 years. You might look to have a legacy So I would ask that investor, are you looking for an exit? Are you looking to be with me for the next 20 years? And if they don't have the same mindset or view, then they're not going to be great partners for you. So first thing that I would do for sure is I would figure out, well, do I even want to bring on a partner? If I did bring on a partner, what can they help us with that's going to bring more revenue in here? Do they have contacts to that's going to give us more eyeballs? Because usually we need more than just money. You know, people need more than just money. They need some sort of strategic play. Do they have another group of companies that they're invested in that where we can seamlessly integrate ourselves to where we can lay our products, our services on top of their other companies so that we can drive in and 10x of revenue. So if those things aren't happening, then that would be something to think about.
Okay, great information, man. Yeah, because I got approached a couple weeks ago and I was like, I was flattered, but then I started thinking about it and I was like, okay, let me, when I saw you were coming on, I said, let me ask him that question. So thanks for that. And let's talk
Yeah, can
about,
I ask you a question about that?
yes, go,
Like,
go ahead.
are you at a place where you're considering, bringing someone in and partnering with?
Potentially. I mean, I'm not sitting here like 100%. I mean, it's definitely something that I'm entertaining.
And what about it would be entertaining for you?
Basically, it would be entertaining if I knew that it would elevate my business.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
but because for me, elevation is financial as well. So it would be nice to have some additional financial support, but also elevate in the mindset and the business plan that I have in progress. So I would just want to make sure that everything is aligned. So
So the two things that I would look at for sure, sitting in your shoes, one, are we going to be on the same page philosophically, right? Because I'm going to be in partnership with this person for a long time. And I'm going to have probably, if not monthly meetings with them, quarterly meetings. And I just want to make sure that we understand one another because it's definitely going to be a relationship. There's no question about that. And two, what can they bring to my company that's going to give me more value than just money? Because we can get money from anyone. I can go to the bank right now and get an SBA loan and not have to deal with all the issues that might come with that, right? So what strategically are you going to bring the organization that is going to help us 5x or 10x in the next year to 2 years? And if they cannot answer those types of questions, I wouldn't mess with them.
and I see my brother Ray's on here, so I'm gonna ask you one more question, and I'm gonna let him slide on. Let's talk about your real estate investing company.
So about 3 years into the business, well, let me back up. So one of my early clients, she was a real estate broker, a real estate investor, and she shot me a email and said, "Do I know?" Here's the thing again. Do you know anyone who invests in real estate? And I was broke, man. Like I was just starting an organization. I had no money, and I didn't really have connections like that. I was still maybe 32 years old, something like that. And so I didn't, but I said, "Well, what do you have going on?" And she says, "Well, I really work with out of state investors and help them get into properties, and we manage the properties and do all that." And I said, "Listen, I'm not in a position to do that, but I will be. Anything that you send your investors, send me as well." So for about 3 years, every week I'm getting these deals and I'm looking at them and I'm analyzing, and she's sending the numbers, and I'm seeing what sort of rate of returns her investors are getting. And so, man, I would literally be having dreams about this. And so finally we were in the position about 3 years later. And I told her, I said, "All right, Val, I'm ready to go." And so I always wanted to create a company that at the time I only had two kids. Now we have four. But at the time, Ezra was born and then Mila was just born. So I wanted to create a real estate investing company. So I called it E&M Investing Partners. And we just started buying up a ton of real estate, man, all out of state. I lived in California. So first we started in Indiana, and then we moved to Atlanta. And we just, as much as we could, just tried to buy as many at the time single family homes. And then that was great until it got a little bit cumbersome. And I should say this, I probably would have did that forever, but sometimes one thing leads to another thing. And so for about 4 years of just going crazy buying real estate, I was in vacation in Colombia. A buddy of mine called me up and said, "Hey, I'm stuck in a real estate deal. I need about $100,000 to close this deal. My HELOC has been something happened with his HELOC, home equity line of credit." And he says, "Do you know anyone?" I'm telling you, that's what a lot of people say. "Do you know anyone that wouldn't mind investing in this project?" I'm in Cartagena in the bed and breakfast, man. I was like, send the deal over. Let me look at it. I looked at it. It was great. It was a 5 unit apartment building that he was fixing up. He was flipping. I knew that market because he was in Indianapolis and I had been in Indiana for years. And called up my attorney. We did all the paperwork. I wired him the money. He wanted it at 18% interest rate, and he was going to hold my money for 3 or 4 months. And that was the first lending deal that I did, and it was so beautiful and it was so easy. I turned to my wife and I said, "We're selling all of our real estate, and we're just going to start lending money."
First of all, thanks for coming on, man. And the wealth of knowledge that you have is going to be insanely helpful to a lot of people that are listening, even myself. And I've been taking notes along the way, as you know, as you've been talking. And I just have two questions for you. First one is regarding real estate. So when you started buying your real estate initially, what type of what was the process for that? Did you just, use different types of loans, to get that started, or can you walk me through how, the initial first few properties, what you did to get that started?
So you remember at the beginning of this thing, I told you guys about that 10-10-10 process. So I just kept that process the whole way up. So at the beginning, 10% going to savings, 10% to investing, 10% to tithing wasn't that much, man, because I didn't really have that much. But over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, I started to increase my income, but I kept the same ratios. So when we were about 3 or 4 years later, I had a big pile of cash in my investing bucket, just ready to use. And I was going to I thought that I was going to start using loans for out of state investing, but I didn't end up doing that. I'll tell you how I got the first couple of properties. But before my wife would let me get the out of state stuff, we didn't have a house yet. So we were still in a small apartment, 700 square feet, man, 2 bedrooms, 1.5 bathroom. It was super tiny. And she says she just wasn't having it. She says, "We're not buying real estate. We don't even have a place to live." So I took out in Southern California, and it might be this way across the country, but if you're a first time home buyer, you can take out a first time home buyer loan. It's called an FHA loan, where you only have to put down about 3.5%, something like that. And so I had a big pile of cash thinking I was going to use all of this to that all of that was going to go to our own personal home. But because I got that FHA loan, only had to put down 3.5%, I had a lot of money to play with for out of state. So in 2015, we bought our first primary home, but I still had so much that when I went to out of state, I bought all those houses in cash. And I didn't want to get loans from them just because I really wanted cash flow. I've been reading all these books. I'm sure you've read Rich Dad Poor Dad and Millionaire Mindset. I'm reading all
Oh yeah.
these books, and so I was like hungry to finally get some sort of passivity and some cash flow. And so I said, if I can, buy these places in cash, then my monthly checks are going to be good. I did wholesale one of those properties. So What wholesaling means, so remember the lady who was sending me all of those deals for about 3 years, I would be asking her a ton of questions, right? Like, so how are these guys doing it? What are the different techniques that people are using? Are they getting loans from these properties? Or are they paying them in cash? And so she told me about wholesaling, which was fascinating. I never even knew you could do something like this. But basically, all I did was I got a property that this guy didn't want. And for the audience out there, please write this down. There are properties that are called don't want them, okay? And there are lots of them all across the world. I've sold don't want them. So basically, owners of properties get to a point to where that property becomes so much of a headache, maybe the tenant becomes so much of a headache that they just don't want them. And they're looking for people to give them to, literally to give them to. Okay, they don't want the headache anymore, and they'd be willing to lose money on the property to not deal with the problem. And I've sold many of these myself. I just didn't. I was like, bro, thank you for contacting me. You can dang near have the dang property. So I found a property like this, and I just got it under contract. But I had connections with those other real estate investors that my friend was selling properties to. And so I got the property on the contract, let's just say for 80,000. I hit him up and said, "Hey, I got a great property. You only have to put a little bit of money into it, selling it for 88,000." He was like, "Great, let's buy it." I kept the 8,000, assigned the contract to him. Okay. So it doesn't seem like a lot of money, but I'm telling you guys, $8,000 compounded over 25 years at a 10% interest rate turns into a lot of money. So it doesn't seem like it's that much, but I did nothing but found a property, had an investor to buy it, got it under contract, and then sold it to him. And you can do that if you don't have a lot of money to get in real estate, then start wholesaling properties because you don't need money. You don't need it. You'd probably be like, well, Jamil, you had a stockpile of cash. Okay, I did, but you don't even need cash to go on and get into your first property. So that's how we got into it. And then over the years, I would, either put the property on the contract, I would wholesale the property, or I would buy it in cash.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, I've read a few books on wholesaling as well, and one of the big key things they were saying was look for distressed
Distressed
properties.
property.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah, look for distressed
There's
properties. Look,
no, there's just a lot of them, man. I think like remember I grew up poor on welfare. Like that's why I
Mhm.
started this whole thing with mindset because from my vantage point, I'm thinking, why would someone who owned the property, why would they want to get rid of it? That's because I had never been on the ownership side. I never had ownership problems before. So for me, I'm thinking, why would anyone, you guys, people want to get rid of businesses all the time. They want to get rid of properties. They want to get rid of problems. And a lot of times you will find things for great deals because these owners got a lot of other stuff to deal with. Remember, they still got families. They probably have kids. They probably got dogs that got sick. Sometimes the last thing they want to deal with is a freaking laundromat that that they really don't even want, and they're looking for somebody to come in and just take it off their hands, or a property where a tenant has been lounging in their property, they can't leave. Every time they bring the sheriff in to get the tenant out, they got to pay the sheriff $200-300. They brought in a big Great Dane that is tearing up the property. You can't do anything about it. And so a lot of times they don't want the property, and you just have to be hungry enough to find these deals and then build a network of investors so that you can flip them to them.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you for breaking that down clearly. For me and everyone listening as well. Um, My other question was based on something you spoke about earlier. You said you were an angel investor as well. Can you expand on that a little bit? Because that's something I've always been intrigued and heard of. And what is the criteria to be an angel investor? Do you have to
Sure.
be a accredited investor initially? You know what I mean? So can you answer a few of those questions?
Sure. Yeah. So most people have seen the show Shark Tank. And so as we were, just really engulfed in building our business, building my organization, pouring into my clients and the entrepreneurs that we supported, buying real estate, obviously was putting money away into the market, which I love the stock market, by the way. I started watching the show Shark Tank and seeing what these guys were doing, and it just looked so much fun. Like it looked fun, it looked sexy. And then once I started lending, a lot of people that were getting money from us were business owners. I wasn't taking any equity. I was just doing straight lending deals to these guys and all sorts of different businesses, Ray, accounting firms and real estate brokers and restaurants. Just like if you have money, people are looking for money. And so I always wanted to do the whole Shark Tank thing. Luckily enough, we did become accredited investors. An accredited investor is when your household income, I forget the exact numbers, but your household income is over like 250,000, or your net worth is over 1 million outside of your primary home. Something
Correct.
like that. You have to correct me if I'm wrong. But once we became accredited investors, I felt really comfortable with now partnering with companies, partnering with CEOs and founders, and seeing how we could be a value add. And at first, it was scary. It was because I didn't know what to say, I didn't know what to ask, and I felt intimidated. I'm just going to be honest with you in the audience. I felt intimidated because I didn't see myself as a businessman. And I felt like these founders were more business people than me. And so I a lot of times took the back seat at the very beginning because I thought I've never thought that I was smart. I still don't think that I'm that bright. And I always felt like they were smarter than me. And so I'd be scared to ask for things or scared to ask questions I didn't know, scared to negotiate because every single founder will overprice their company. Every single one. I mean, if I would do it too, right? Because it's our baby and we believe that it's a lot more valuable than it actually is. And so even that negotiation process and all that stuff was very, very intimidating. But basically, angel investing is you are partnering with a founder, CEO. Most of the times, if not always, it's a startup. So this is pre-revenue, meaning they haven't sold anything. They haven't brought any money into the company. It is risky, super risky. Just think about it if you had, $50,000 that you're going to partner into a company. Again, if you put that same $50,000 into the S&P 500 at about 8 to 10% growth over the next 30 years, that 50,000 is going to compound to a lot of money. When you are putting that 50,000 into a brand new company where they haven't established, they might have a plan, but they haven't executed the plan, which makes it really risky. They might even have a marketing plan or a sales plan, but fact of the matter is they never sold anything. So a lot of times you are keeping your fingers crossed and you're betting on the talent of the founder and the team that he or her have put around them. And now, why do people do this? Because if it works, then this is where you make for real money. So, say you invest $50,000 into a company, and over the next 5 years, that company grows and that company starts doing about $10 million a month in revenue. And now a bigger company in the market comes along and they say, you know what? We don't really even want your company, Ray. We just don't want your competition anymore. We're going to buy your company for 100 million. And let's just say, Ray, you have 10% of that company. You own 10% of that company. Now you just got a check of $10 million. And so that's why people do it. And so even if you kept the same formula, 10% of that 10 million in savings, 10% in investing, 10% in tithing or giving away, then you would invest another $1 million into the next project or to the next, bucket of projects. So that's why we decided to get into angel investing. It's because the upside is so big, but you rarely ever take all of your investing funds and put it all into angel investing or private equity because it's so risky. You probably want to use maybe 5% of your investing funds to put into a risky project like that.
Spot on. Thank you again, Jamil, for answering that question. That's something that's been on my mind for quite a while. And I was like, man, this angel, I understand, investing. I'm an investor myself. I'm a, day trader. I actually have a 6 o'clock Zoom, for some students to teach them about investing.
Yeah,
So,
let's go.
yeah, right. So, coaching and investing, Corey knows this. That's kind of my wheelhouse. But I like to be well rounded, and I appreciate you coming on the show, man. And I definitely want to speak with you offline if possible to definitely talk more. I got more questions, but I want to keep the whole show going, wrap the whole show. So, thank you for answering my questions, Corey. I'll hand it back over to you, brother. Thank you.
Definitely. Yeah, but this Black Man Sundays, I call it the spiderweb effect. We bring the guest on, you link up with them, we take it from there. So Jamil, man, before I continue, are you enjoying yourself on Black Men Sundays?
Oh man, when Diamond is part of my team. She's incredible. When she told me that I was coming on, I was giddy, man. I was like, let's go. Because I wanted, one of the reasons why I wrote one of my books, which is called The Richest Man in Direct Sales, is because I always thought, for our community, it seems so big. It seems so tough. It seems so hard, for real. And I never really saw like three brothers like us just talking about this stuff, and it seemed, and so when I wrote that book, it really was with our community in mind. With no, you guys, like, look, it's a lot simpler than I think that we're making it out to be. And you don't have to have a lot of money. You don't have to, have straight A's. You don't have to come from a well-to-do family. You don't need any of that stuff. Like you just need the mindset, And so what you guys are doing is you're part of that conversation that's out there that's helping people obtain that mindset. As long as you're making money, you can build wealth. It just takes time.
Definitely. And for the brothers that want to purchase your books, tell us the names of the books and where we can purchase those.
So the first book is called The Richest Man in Direct Sales. I never intended on putting that book out in the public. It's just I had a son, that same son that I told you guys about that I was very nervous about, and I wanted to change our lives. And so I started keeping a journal about what dad was doing with his money. And then after years of me now mentoring all these people, and I was trying to tell them, your business is doing great, but you keep spending every single thing that you're making. Here's my journal. Just follow what I've been doing for the last 5, 6 years. And then a book guy came to me and was like, "Bro, this is a book." So we made it into a book. So that's called the Richest Man in Direct Sales. And then the book after that is called The 12 Shifts, and that book really is just about personal development and helping you have a formidable life, not just bank account.
Got you, man. And if I'm a brother listening to this show and I'm like, that sounds great, but see, he has money. I'm living paycheck to paycheck with this inflation. I'm pretty much don't really have any money left over after I pay my bills. What advice could you give to those brothers that want to get in the game, but they're struggling living life?
First thing I would say to them is I understand, and there's nothing wrong with you at all. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you, and you can absolutely do it. And if you need help, like there's a lot of people that will help. And I can say that because in large respects, I was in that situation, and I think millions and millions of people are. Corey, this stuff isn't taught to us, man. When I say taught to us, I really do be like taught to us. Like my kids are at an advantage because this is the language that we speak. They have equities already. They're owners of companies and they got lots of money in the market already, right? Their colleges are already paid for, even the 2-year old. So by the time he turns 18, he's going to have 250,000 to use for education. That is rare. So there's nothing wrong with this brother that's asking this question. I would say a couple things. First thing is do you want to get out of the situation? And if he says yes, I'm going to ask him again, for real, do you for real want to move out of the situation? And if he's like, yeah, then I'm gonna say, okay, then we absolutely can do this. So we got to start making some sacrifices though, because right now you are living off of 100% of your paycheck. We got to figure out a way to get that down to at least 95%, 90%, hell, 98% would be better than 100%. We don't need big, we need consistent. So, first thing that I would advise them to do is to go back and look at their last 3 months of their bank statements or credit card statements and start looking at every single thing that they spent money on. Okay. This is just going to give us a baseline. All I'm asking them to do is just stand on the scales so we can see how financially fit or unfit he or she is. And most likely they're going to be financially obese. We got to start losing financial weight. And I speak like this because I spent the last decade building a health coaching organization. So I equate money with weight a lot. So just like when I'm helping someone lose weight, I have to put them in a caloric deficit. I'm going to have to put this young man in a financial deficit. We just can't spend what you've been spending. He's going to say everything that I'm spending my money on, I need. I'm going to go through there and say, no, about 30% of the stuff you don't need, these are what we call wants. And I'm going to cut them out and it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt just because it's going to be painful and uncomfortable. Just like when I was 230 pounds when I shouldn't have been, and I went into a caloric deficit, it hurt because I was used to eating all that crap. Same thing happens with money. We spend a lot of money on things that we don't need. And when I start cutting that out for people, they don't like it. It's painful. And so that's one of the reasons why most people don't build wealth is because it's an uncomfortable process. And so he's going to have to start, well, like I said, delaying some gratification. And there are things in there that he wants that he doesn't need right now. So once we start doing that, and once we start finding a spread in his income, which trust me, there is going to be a spread, then we just have to start telling that money what to do instead of letting that money tell us what to do. If there's some debt there, then we just start paying off the debt. But we're definitely going to start building a savings account. We're going to build a rainy day fund. We're going to start putting money away for investing. And then we're going to start giving away because I believe in the law of reciprocity. What we give, we'll in turn receive. And then we'll start letting that money grow for us in some sort of investment vehicle. Now, at the beginning, he may not be able to do the 10-10-10 strategy that I told you about. He might only be able to do the 1-1-1 strategy, right? Like put 1% of his money away in the savings, 1% away to investing, 1% away of giving away, and he might live off of 97%. But over time, we're going to get that down to where he's living off of only 70%. Now, at the same time, what we do with our students is we teach them how to make more money. And so now I'm going to start mentoring and coaching him how to go into his job and be a value add so that they give him a raise, how to start negotiating raises and how to start becoming a leader in that organization. People will always pay you more if you know how to solve problems. One reason why he's not getting paid a lot right now, or as much as he wants, is because he's lacking skills and he's not solving enough problems. If he wants to start starting a business, then we'll teach him how to do that too. And all I'm looking for in is additional $1,000 to $2,000 a month. I don't even really want that much. Just from that, if I can get him to a place to now we start investing $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 a month. That means, Corey, that I get to help him invest $24,000 a year. And Corey, if I teach this dude how to invest $24,000 a year over the next 20 years, he'll have $3.5 million.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, man. That's what I'm talking about. Let's talk to our married folks for a little bit, man, because I was checking out your Instagram and I saw you had that no questions asked account. And I said, I kind of want to talk about that on the show a little bit for our married folk out there.
So I believe marriage is one of the greatest institutions for building wealth. And one thing that I should say it like this, from my time of mentoring thousands of entrepreneurs, most of them I would say were married. I don't think that's going out on a limb. I would say most of them were married. One thing that I have found, and it may not be true, but I think it's true in my situation, is rarely did they have the same money beliefs. Does that make sense? Like, rarely did the husband and the wife have the same beliefs around money. My wife, for example, she doesn't care at all how much we make, what we invest, where we invest it. Like, it's just not important to her. And so I found this in a lot of couples that we've helped over the years as well, and it's certainly been present in my own marriage. And so I thought that I wanted to. I set all these goals, and one of the goals that I set was I want to get to a place to where I create an account for her to where she can basically do whatever it is that she wants to do without asking any questions. Of course, she has her own money. Of course, she's highly intelligent. Of course, she's self sufficient. Um, but I think that, how cool would it be if our wives got to wake up every day and know that there was a stockpile of cash that was there that would be replenished, that they could do whatever it is that they want to do. So she has an account called a no questions asked account. But basically, if she wants to go somewhere, she can go. If she wants to go on a trip, she can go. If she wants to go shopping, she can do it. If she wants to start a business, she can do it. We usually keep about $30,000 in that account, and it gets replenished throughout the years when she decides to use it. And I think that that's something, especially for us men and for us as husbands, to just put there. I think our wives appreciate it, and I know that my wife appreciates it. She rarely uses it, honestly, but I think just the safety of it puts her at ease. And holy cow, if she's at ease, fellas, I'm at ease.
There you have it. Great information, Jamil Frazier, man. Is there anything else that I didn't ask you? Any tips, tricks that you want to share before we get out of here?
Yeah, I think because we're still in the family, I coach a lot of people with family and relationships as well. And one thing that I do that might be helpful for the audience, especially helpful for the men or women, doesn't matter, is I have a document for my wife that's called "If Something Should Happen to Me." And basically, this document lays out step by step, basically, if I died, what to do. Call this person. Here are all the accounts. Here are the passwords, step by step. Step number one, call this person. Step number two, then call this person. Step number three, call this person. Here's where our equities are. Here's our businesses. Call these people. Take 10% of this, put it over here. Only spend a certain amount on a funeral. Release these properties because they're going to be too much of a headache for her to take care of. Release these properties, take that money, put it in here. Literally, it gives her a playbook. Like when I played college football, we always had a playbook. This is her playbook outside of our will, outside of our trust, but it's going to give her step by step information because she's going to be freaked out. She's going to be crying. We got 4 kids. So anything that I can do to take that stress off of her to where she knows step by step what to do, I would encourage the audience and for his husbands or even wives, whoever is in charge of like that financial picture, to maybe create something like that to lessen the stress and the angst should something happen to you.
Great information, man. This was definitely an action-packed show. Jamil Frazier, man. Thanks for coming on Black Men Sunday, spending some time with us. This brother's on an oceanfront property vacation in Mexico. Came on Black Men Sundays and tore the
I don't know
stage
if you can
down.
see it out there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, hey, thanks for coming on Black Men Sundays, brother. Enjoy that vacation, and we'll be talking to you. Oh, you know what? I forgot. Hold up. Whoa, you can't leave yet. It's an election year. Yeah, I almost forgot. Hold up. It's an election year. Yeah, yeah. You were trying to slide. Yeah, hold up. It's an election year,
Man.
man. It's October now. The
Hmm.
election is right around under a month
Man,
away.
Ray, I'm nervous, man. I think my battery on my computer is about to turn off, man. I'm not sure it's working anymore.
Yeah, so this year, this election year, who are you voting for and why?
Wow, man, I've never have answered this question before. So I will be voting for Trump. I voted for Trump last time around as well. I'm not sure that I could ever vote for the Democratic Party, probably for as long as I live. I don't consider myself anything really, Democrat, Republican, or whatnot. But I just, and that's a lot of what the book, The 12 Shifts, was about. The 12 Shifts were basically things that I knew, oh my God, were true, that I realized were not true. But it had nothing to do with politics. It was just like normal stuff, right? Like the things that I knew that were true, that as I started building an organization that's impacted over 400,000 people, that does over 30 million in revenue, that have had me mentor and coach, over 4,000 entrepreneurs, things that I thought were true pre that, then as I went on the journey, it just turned out not to be true. And one of them was my mindset. I really, because of the way that I grew up, I really developed a poverty mindset. I just did, man. And I expected things to be given to me. I just did. And it's not right or it's not wrong, but I we waited every month, for subsidies, for handouts. And that became a little bit of my psyche. And I realized a lot of those types of things that were true for me as I started building my business. I just realized, man, those are not the types of philosophies that help us get over, that help us move forward, that help us create success. And then I started realizing I was never into politics at all. I actually felt really dumb about it. And I was at a Thanksgiving dinner in 2017, I believe, and everybody was talking. I felt so stupid. And I went back home because I had nothing to add to the conversation. And I just looked up like Democrat beliefs. I just always knew I was a Democrat. That's just what I was. So I looked at, what do Democrats believe? What do, conservatives believe or whatever? And as I started going down the list, I started realizing that, man, everything that helped me go from being dead broke to being a millionaire in 6.5 years, like most of those policies and belief systems just happen to be more conservative. Freaked me out. I have a whole book about it because I never thought that was me. And so over the years, I just realized the things that I believe will actually help us move forward as a community don't really align with the Democratic Party. And I think that we'll move ahead a lot quicker with more conservative policies.
It's a black man Sunday. Time to put all childish things away. I refuse to be the man I was yesterday. Gotta put my best foot forward and elevate. It's a black man Sunday. Time to put all childish things away. I refuse to be the man I was yesterday. Gotta put my best foot forward and elevate. It's a black man.